This culminated in him falling asleep mid-session in the middle of combat. Hello friends and welcome back to ReddX, your source for the freshest daily cringe content anywhere on the internet. Promise, swearsies, it's just a fact and it's totally science. Go ahead and look it up. Today we're jumping into r/TalesofNeckbeards. No wait, Neckbeard stories. No, wait, actually it's from my personal subreddit r/ReddX reads. We are jumping back into the Hulkbeard saga today. In the last episode, which is linked in the description, we had parts 1 and 2. Part 1, relatively short. Part 2, quite a bit beefier, and it seems like part 3 is even beefier than that. So we are ramping our way up in this Hulkbeard saga, and I'm quite looking forward to it. Hulkbeard essentially is a discount Mr. Steal Your Girl, you know? He's just always chasing after OP's lady loves and then manipulating OP once they break up, and he's like, oh yeah, dude, I saw it coming. You should just be alone and miserable, like me. And OP almost was. He said in the last post how close he came to being the subject of a Neckbeard story instead of the author of one. And I think we can all identify with that pretty heavily. At least I know I can. So I guess we'll see what we're in for today. We'll get some plugs and disclaimers out of the way, and then we will dive right into some of this Neckbeard stories cringe. Hulkbeard Chapter 3, Dice, Deadpool, and Robots.
Oh yeah, robots are super cool.
Is he a Gundam beard? Hello, fellow Redditors and ReddX viewers. We're back with the third installment of the unfortunate saga of Hulkbeard. Please don't say unfortunate, because it just makes me think of Unfortunate Nookie. If you just arrived, here are the links to the previous chapters. Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, as I said, video link in the description if it does interest you. Today we're going to be delving into every beard's favorite pastime. 4chan and cartoon pornography aside, I'm speaking, of course, about
Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh lord, unfortunately it is quite a beard pastime. It's also one of my pastimes. I've always loved tabletop RPGs. The only reason that I didn't get into them sooner was because I grew up in a small bumfuck of a town with exactly 0 game stores. But now that I was going off to university in the big city, all bets were basically off. That's right, find somebody to drag you to the table, start rolling them math rocks. Proud of you. I am equal parts dice goblin and forever DM to this very day. Yeah, another forever DM. We need some players though, for real. I love me some shiny math rocks. To say that my foray into the hobby got off to a rough start would be putting it lightly, however. And the blame for that rests largely at the feet of our very own Hulkbeard. Though, as always, I too share the blame. That's right, OP always taking credit for stuff, even if we shouldn't necessarily blame him. I mean, hindsight's always 20/20, you know? Captain Clown Show, that's our OP. A 21-year-old English major with no social skills, emotional intelligence, or backbone. Now possessed of a dim awareness that Hulkbeard, might be a slightly toxic person. The DM also played an NPC sorcerer that the party adopted as their mascot. Gotta love them NPC mascots. Hulkbeard is the Beard. Surprisingly creative and original when coming up with solutions to puzzles and tactics for combat. Unfortunately, also just a terrible role player. Played multiple characters, each one for only a few months.
'Cause he got bored.
He kind of reminds me of Burger Beard, like pretty good at the actual game of D&D, but it's, the social aspect of it that he completely fails at. The Greek, a friend that I met through the campus anime club, though usually non-confrontational to a fault, and frequently spun lies to either avoid conflict or talk himself up, though, as I learned, even his passivity had limits. He played a human sorcerer / scion. Monksbane, a female friend that I met a short time after Hulkbeard. Tall, thin, and artsy, she was a fan of horror games, Lolita fashion, and tabletop RPGs. Also completely sex repulsed with a romantic preference for women. Became one of my closest friends and a source of many additional beard tales. Played a half-elf bard / swashbuckler. Well, I know that even sexual preferences cannot keep beards at bay. They just keep coming like a freight train. I do hope that Monkbane doesn't have to experience it, but I guess we'll see. Rocky is a friend that I met through university, a geosci major who leapt at the chance to play D&D as his old group had fallen apart, as D&D groups tend to do. Unfortunately, he didn't last long in the new group either. He played a dwarven fighter / ranger. Thespian, a drama major that I also met at Anime Club, had multiple scarves and fedoras in his wardrobe, yet somehow managed to pull that look off without looking like a complete tool. Yeah, it's pretty easy if you're fashion forward. Scarves and fedoras look good, just not with fucking cargo shorts and an anime shirt. He was a skilled and dedicated role player, drama major, and one of the few people who didn't allow himself to be driven away by Hulkbeard. He played an elf rogue / monk. Also has a significant role later in a Neckbeard story that I'll draft up once the Hulkbeard saga has reached its conclusion. Oh, more Neckbeard sagas. I'm in. You son of a bitch, I'm in. Swole Man, a Hulkbeard's only friend, a soft-spoken Asian fellow who held his liquor about as well as a sieve. Yeah, I know a lot of Asian dudes that get red in the face and stuff like that. It's pretty funny. Also built like a brick shithouse due to spending most of his free time at the gym. Fittingly, he did play a fighter / barbarian. I've never known a soft-spoken barbarian, but I guess we'll see how it plays out. And now, the story. So there I was, a young nerd in the big city. A box full of miniatures, a shelf full of source books, and a bag full of dice. What more could I want in life? It was time to take my first steps into the wonderful world of D&D. By this point, I'd read countless horror stories about D&D groups being torn apart and games being ruined by neckbeards. I decided that in order to avoid this, I'd tap my friend groups to see if there was any interest there. Hulkbeard was, unfortunately, one of the first people that I invited. The irony does not escape me. Yeah, now it doesn't, but back then I truly think it did, probably. And the first sub-story of this story, I suppose, Dollarama Deadpool, Hulkbeard's first character. Of course it's fucking Deadpool. What is a beard not like identifying with Deadpool or the Joker or Rick from Rick and Morty? It's just a cookie cutter sheet. They all come from the same shit. Anyways, after spending a few months putting together a campaign setting, the game was ready to begin. And by this point, the party consisted of myself as the DM, Rocky, Thespian, the Greek, Hulkbeard, and Monksbane. I linked everyone to the setting and put in some details on where the campaign would be starting. They would be soldiers, fresh recruits in an army that was fighting a losing war against a general known as the Ogre King. Was he an actual ogre? Fairly generic, sure, but it was my first campaign, so I figured it might be best to start small. That's wise. You don't want to get in over your head, you know? So I take all the tropes with a grain of salt. And tropes are kind of cool anyways. You can play with them a lot. Almost immediately, Hulkbeard contacted me. He didn't want to just play any ordinary character. He basically wanted to be a high fantasy Deadpool. A frail character that could not permanently die. Something which would enable some absolutely idiotic hijinks, of course. Not wanting to discourage him, you should have discouraged him. I understand, first time out DMing. You can tell people no, though. That's fine. I worked with Thespian to brainstorm something that might fit. We were playing D&D 3.5, and it was a Gestalt game, meaning each character leveled 2 classes simultaneously. As a result, it wasn't too hard to figure out a homebrew option for Hulkbeard. In this case, I wasn't playing any favorites. I can and still do work out homebrew options for my players if they come to me with a feasible enough idea. This idea does not seem that feasible, if I'm being quite honest. Thespian and I ended up taking the worm that walks, an immortal hive mind of maggots formed from the body of a lich, and adapting it into a starting class. Hulkbeard excitedly used it to create his first character, Worm. Well, this is fitting at least. Unfortunately, it didn't take long for Hulkbeard to start complaining that this immortal homebrew
Wasn't powerful enough. It's boring.
he would whine to me outside of sessions.
I can't do anything as cool as the rest of the party. And my character doesn't have anything that makes him unique.
Except, being a hive mind of maggots and not being able to die. That's pretty unique if you ask me. Part of the problem was how Hulkbeard played his characters. No matter their backstory, no matter what he claimed about their personality, every single character he played inevitably just seemed to end up as Hulkbeard. Or at least, I suppose, how he saw himself. Cold, logical, lawful, and stoic. So much for high fantasy Deadpool. Even though I by no means forbade him from creating a new character, he became gradually more upset about the campaign. This would eventually boil over into physical violence. Imaginary physical violence, or did he actually punch one of your players? Jesus! I mean, I saw him smash a game controller on his head in the last episode. I don't put anything past this guy. You see, Hulkbeard didn't take his ADD medication when it came to D&D. According to him, the meds caused him to become frustrated with the group's brand of humor and approach to problem solving. I will say that without his medication, Hulkbeard was, marginally less angry. But that's like saying that the Sahara Desert is marginally cooler than Death Valley. They are both fucking boiling. In the absence of his meds, Hulkbeard's attention span was functionally non-existent. This culminated in him falling asleep mid-session in the middle of combat. Oh god, he's like a fusion of Burgerbeard and Turtle. Or was that Skeletor? I think it was Skeletor. Burgerbeard and Skeletor. I guess Hulkbeard needs to play some anime waifu games on his phone to keep him awake, as Skeletor did. When it was his turn, Rocky opted to rouse the sleeping beard. Hulkbeard went fucking nuclear. Oh my god, he did punch somebody. Snarling, he punched Rocky several times in the leg and arm and stormed out of my apartment. A few seconds later, we heard the sound of his car starting and peeling out of the parking lot. Well, good riddance to bad fucking rubbish, I say. After a few moments of shocked silence, Rocky spoke up.
Guys, Hulkbeard was my ride home. What do I do now?
Yeah, call an Uber, I guess. Having lost our appetite for gaming in that moment, we all pitched in for a taxi and just went our separate ways. What a clusterfuck. Hulkbeard apologized to Rocky for his outburst the next day, but the damage had already been done. A week later, Rocky contacted me to let me know that he had too much schoolwork to play D&D anymore. He had to duck out of the campaign for the time being. I took what he said at face value because I was an idiot. I mean, I'm a big proponent of open and honest communication, you know? If you would have just said, hey, Hulkbeard is a menace, I don't want to play with him specifically anymore, then maybe OP could have fielded some questions, realized that Hulkbeard was ruining the whole thing, and just kicked him out instead of being left with the shambles of what Hulkbeard left behind. Sub-story number 2, interdimensional snowflake robot man. Hulkbeard's second character. What am I supposed to do with this title? Oh, having finally grown fed up playing not Deadpool, Hulkbeard announced to me that he was going to retire that character and create something new. I told him that was fine. I'm not gonna force someone to play a character that they don't feel connected to. I mean, at the end of the day, we are all here to have fun. At least in theory. Unfortunately, I was about to find out what Hulkbeard's brand of fun entailed. Later that week, I was at Monksbane's when I received a message from Hulkbeard, and he informed me that his new character
was one of the Warforged, a species of sentient magical robots. A species which also existed in an entirely different campaign setting. But that's completely cool, right?
And OP, being the new DM and not wanting to tell people no, says, okay, no problem. It would be easy to tweak things so that they existed. Unfortunately, he then followed up by sending me his backstory. Oh no.
My character backstory is a fairly uneventful but interesting one. After being created in Eberron as one of the last Warforged, made unfortunately after the end of the last war, I couldn't find meaning in life, and I went to a powerful wizard to try and end my life. The wizard, finding my new malleable mind a pitiful mess, decided to take pity on me, sending me into a void to give me time to think. This spell was a powerful one, and with time lost its stability, sending me from Eberron to a new world, one without constant war.
For those of you who couldn't keep up with that glob of text, especially in the Neckbeard voice, Hulkbeard, in summation, wanted his character to be from a completely different dimension, wanted his character to be the last of his kind, and apparently forgot that the whole core of this campaign was a literal fucking war. Yeah, special magical snowflake robot. It's all coming together. I said no. Good boy. Hulkbeard did not like that. Bad boy. What followed was several hours of verbal abuse, threats to quit the campaign, and self-pity. I've included just a small excerpt below. Good, you don't like it? Fucking quit. What the hell? You could have saved everybody else. Old Rocky might even decided to come back. Hulkbeard.
Seriously, one of a kind. Not allowed at all.
OP. Not if the backstory is simply from Eberron. Hulkbeard.
No, from another realm. Most of the character development happens in your world.
OP. Okay. Warforged are from the plane of Mechanus. Hulkbeard.
In a forest where he meets a druid who teaches him the peaceful ways.
OP. Basically, lawful aligned plane of machines. There you go. Just work with that. Hulkbeard.
I know this is gonna sound whiny, but God, you are anal.
OP. It is not anal to be controlling the backstory of the world that I created. Hulkbeard.
I feel that in a realm where magic exists, to teleport you through time and space exists, that being teleported into the world is unreasonable.
OP. And again, I stress that I would not be this anal if you give me a bit more time to think about all of this, rather than going, oh, by the way, I'm developing a new character, and he's a unique snowflake robot wizard. Hulkbeard.
Seriously, my character doesn't even interfere with your divine story.
OP. Stop with the sarcasm. Hulkbeard.
That's not sarcasm.
OP. Your divine story. That sounds like either sarcasm or spite to me. Hulkbeard.
Spite. Dungeon Master's Guide, page 45. Bad structure.
Eventually, Hulkbeard just managed to wear me down. As beards do, they never stop. They never stop! Just say no and do not engage. It's the only way. And yeah, OP ended up giving up. If he wanted this character to be a super special dimension-hopping robot man, then so be it. Monksbane attempted to counter Hulkbeard's manipulation, telling me that it was all bullshit. Unfortunately, her words fell on deaf ears. I apologized for souring the mood and just went home trying to get some sleep. I didn't. A not-so-horrifying interlude, Abomination and the Tomb of Horrors. Oh my god. But at least it's not so horrifying, maybe. I spent a lot of time shitting on Hulkbeard, but I want to be clear that he wasn't terrible all of the time. No person is, really, or else why would he be there at all? Occasionally, playing D&D with him had the potential to be fun, and for the most part, I did enjoy gaming with him. When the Greek couldn't make it to a few sessions, we decided to put the main game on hiatus and try something a little different. The legendary Tomb of Horrors, which I'd recently discovered, and it had been re-released for the 3rd edition. So everyone rolled up multiple characters and dove headfirst into what we expected to be a terrifying challenge. Hulkbeard's character was a min-maxed monster who, for the purposes of this story, we'll refer to as Abomination. Another Warforged, but this one is a towering brute made of adamantine. For the first time since he started playing D&D, Hulkbeard actually role-played. Well, is that terrifying? I can only imagine his roleplay skills are not that good since it is his first time. But hey, good job on putting yourself out there, Beardo. Granted, his new character was dumb as a post, so role-playing in this case was basically
hit the bad guys until they get dead.
Yeah, the easiest form of roleplay available, but okay, at least he's trying. But to me, it seemed like Hulkbeard was actually making genuine progress. Not for the first time, I held out hope that maybe, just maybe, he would stop being such a nightmare to play with. I was one dense motherfucker. Oh, P. Hope floats, I'll tell you that. The Tomb of Horrors passed without incident. Hulkbeard even came up with some beautifully creative ways to deal with several of the challenges, such as defeating the last boss with nothing but a dagger and a magical bag. Unfortunately, even these small sparks of enjoyment were ultimately eclipsed by his total beardery. We had all agreed to use the critical failure variant rule, Hulkbeard included. For those of you who don't play D&D, pretty much every major action requires you to roll a 20-sided die. Under the variant rule, rolling a 1 means, bad things happen. Hulkbeard laughed heartily whenever anyone else rolled poorly, but when he was the one in the hot seat, it was a different matter. In one instance, he even went so far as to accuse me of springing the rule on him out of spite. Bitch, you just watched everybody else take the bullet. It's your turn! Get against the wall! Anyway, we wrapped up the Tomb of Horrors right around Christmas break. I planned to go home and visit my parents. Understandably, this meant that we wouldn't be playing until New Year. Hulkbeard proceeded to be like an addict craving a fix, with me as his unwilling dealer.
It isn't fair of you to cancel D&D just because you can't show up,
Hulkbeard complained.
Why can't you just give me your DM notes? I'll run the game myself when you're away.
Thankfully, I managed to talk him out of that terrible idea by explaining that I wasn't the only one leaving for the holidays. He seemed placated, and I enjoyed heartily a Hulkbeard-free Christmas. By now, I had started to realize that Hulkbeard might be a harmful influence, but I had no idea what to actually do about that. Ghost it! I can only imagine the mess that you would come back to if you actually allowed him to take over your D&D campaign. He's like,
oh yeah, everybody's character died except mine.
Another sub-story, The Whining Whale. How Snowflake Bot met his end. Oh, not Snowflake Bot! As the new year rolled around, our party once more gathered for D&D. By now, we had replaced Rocky with Swolman, Hulkbeard's only other friend. There's really not much to say about him, honestly. His character was relatively bland, and he himself was best described as an inoffensive wall of muscle. To this day, I'm not even sure if he enjoyed D&D, or if he was simply there because he had nothing better to do. I got the sense that he wasn't really that interested in D&D to begin with, or perhaps he simply had less patience than the rest of us, where his now former friend's antics were concerned. Well, I don't know, it seems like Swolman's here to save us all. Not the hero that we deserve, but definitely the hero that we need. What I remember most about him is how he partied. Go out drinking with him, and it didn't matter how much of an ass you were, he'd manage to embarrass himself even more. Almost as though he actively sought to do so. If the interest is there, I could share the story of how Swolman managed to get banned from a house party, and how, when informed of his outlandish, absolutely ridiculous behavior that night, his response was,
that he didn't remember that night.
So it never happened. Yeah, I was blackout drunk. None of that counts. Sorry, dude. You still have to go to jail for shit, even if you're blackout drunk when you do it. At least all that happened was getting banned from a house party. Hulkbeard, meanwhile, marginally improved for a very short time after browbeating me into accepting his character idea. And I do mean marginally improved. He still complained, and complained, and complained, and complained.
All you do is lead us by the nose,
He would whine at me.
You're railroading us. Stop restricting how I play my characters.
Well, I haven't seen any of that yet, but show me some proof. OP's DM credentials are still under investigation. I guess, whatever. This isn't RPG horror stories. As it turns out, Hulkbeard had the notion that he was the party leader. Yeah, maybe it is RPG horror stories. When he wanted to do something,
everyone else should simply fall in line.
And when that didn't happen,
it was all my fault.
The death of Snowflake Bot is perhaps the most egregious example. The party, now 12th level, found themselves in a barren, war-torn wasteland. As it turns out, that same wasteland had been targeted by a powerful necromancer in search of raw materials. Hey, war is a growth industry for necromancy. And then here's where I would normally insert a joke about war profiteering, but I can't come up with one right now, so I guess that is the joke. Rather than doing the work himself, he sent an army of automatons to gather corpses. Unfortunately, said automatons did not particularly care if the corpses they gathered were dead or, pre-dead. To them, a corpse was a corpse was a corpse, even if it was still breathing. My players learned this firsthand when they witnessed a Titan attempting to harvest a combined force of ogres and humans. The party agreed that these NPCs couldn't be allowed to face this monstrosity alone, so they rushed in to help. All with the exception of Hulkbeard. Hulkbeard, having
read every D&D source book from cover to cover multiple times,
immediately recognized the creature. More importantly, he recognized that it was intended to be fought by a 17th level group. He, and by association, his character, assumed that he was looking at a total party kill in the making. So, he turned into a bird and ran away. Oh man, how would his character have any of that knowledge? You gotta roleplay and also go help your fucking group out. What the fuck, man? Said the Greek, staring at him across the table in an uncharacteristically confrontational manner. What are you doing? Oh my god! Hulkbeard, bearing an uncanny resemblance to an oversized, pouting toddler, just scowled at the Greek. You're doing a really bad job of gaining our trust, added Monksbane. Besides, I think we can take this thing down. It's more focused on those NPCs than on us. After briefly conferring with the party in character, The Greek looked at me across the table. So, he looked down, shuffled his character sheet, and then looked back up at me. I guess I used forced teleport on Hulkbeard. Whoa! It worked, and the Snowflake bot was teleported directly above the Titan.
Fuck off! You can't do that!
Hulkbeard yelled at the Greek, slamming his fist on the table for emphasis.
Why are you targeting my character?
Dude, you were about to leave us to die for no reason, the Greek responded with a shrug. That's a dick move. Oh my god. I mean, both of you guys are kind of being dicks, but yeah. Cooperate with the party. To be fair, the Greek and Hulkbeard are both kind of being dicks right now, but I gotta side with the Greek because, yeah, cooperate with your fucking party. Where are you gonna go if you turn into a bird and fly away? Just away? And then if the party wipes, there's only Hulkbeard left. What a nightmare. I couldn't help but agree with the Greek. See, OP's with me. Looking back, I'm really not sure what Hulkbeard expected us to do. Stare lovingly at Snowflake Bot's feathered ass as he flapped off into the sunset? Hulkbeard let out a strange, choked gurgle and made several attempts to speak. It was as though he wanted to use words, but had forgotten how. Realizing that his vocal cords were non-functional, he instead settled for trying to kill the Greek with his eyes for several minutes. And then it was his turn to act. Eyes still locked on the Greek, Hulkbeard rose deliberately from the table, character sheet in hand. I immediately tensed up. He wore the same expression that he sported before crushing a controller with his skull.
Fine that,
he growled, each word dripping with venom.
My character shapeshifts into a whale and impales himself on the boss. There, he's dead.
He punctuated his final words by ripping his character sheet to shreds. He released those shreds directly above the center of the table before slumping back to his chair, arms crossed and face scrunched as though he had just consumed the world's sourest lemon. In an effort to diffuse the tension, I offhandedly mentioned that a jar of petunias had fallen nearby while I cleared away the snowflake confetti. It did not work. The two factions of NPCs, no longer facing the threat of a giant murder bot, immediately turned on one another. The party, firmly on the side of the humans, made short work of the remaining ogres. About 10 minutes later, Hulkbeard's pouty expression changed to one of confusion.
Wait,
he mumbled sheepishly.
I just realized I'm not high enough level to shapeshift into creatures of that size. Can I take it back?
You kinda ripped up your character sheet there, Hulkbeard, I responded with a deep, exhausted sigh. So, unless you have a lot of tape on you, then, not really?
But that's not...
He started, his voice raising several octaves. Somehow, this was the moment that I found my spine. I said no! I snarled, locking eyes with the beard. Even if you had your character sheet, several rounds have already passed. I don't think anyone here wants to sit around while we figure out how to literally turn back time. Hulkbeard looked gobsmacked. Perhaps he had hoped that I just had a momentary lapse of judgment and would go back to being his personal doormat in short order. Well, not this time. Good boy, OP. I'm proud of you. Realizing that I'd finally put my foot down, Hulkbeard did the only other thing that he knew how to do, made like Eric Cartman, and tantrumed his way home.
Fine,
he snapped, jumping to his feet.
You guys can have Snowflake Bot stuff. And fuck this, I'm going home.
Hulkbeard stomped off, slamming my front door behind him with such force that it jostled our dice. By now, I knew from experience that this would not be the end of it. I would hear from him later. And oh boy, did I ever. Told you beards never stop, man. Hulkbeard.
The only thing that seems to work in your campaign would be an abomination to me. Because if my character can't tell what other things are doing damage to a target, it's just confusing for a character.
That whole statement is really confusing. And OP agrees, saying, huh? Hulkbeard.
Tomb of Horrors has been fun. It's just been straight up fights. Us versus them. Throw in a bunch of circumstances, though, and a sane character has trouble gauging trouble. You have complete psionic, right?
OP. Yeah, but I'm still not sure what you mean. Hulkbeard.
I find a fight like what we have would have been perfectly reasonable fight to run from. You described it as a fight that they did not appear to be winning.
OP. They did not. Hulkbeard.
As a character, I felt that the fight would be a poor choice.
OP. Add the party and things change. Hulkbeard.
But I like to gauge fights. It seems strange to physically punish someone for running away, especially when they are not actually in the army. It's called a tactical retreat. Duh.
Yes, Hulkbeard and his Hulkbeard tactics. Surely they shall save the day. Apparently, no one told Hulkbeard that actions have consequences, and that when you leave a group of mercenaries to die after swearing that you'll fight by their side, they might get just a little bit annoyed. The argument eventually resolved with Hulkbeard saying that
he wouldn't be rolling another character after Snowflake bot. Instead, he would continue with the Tomb of Horrors campaign,
which by now had graduated to a 15-floor mega dungeon. He reasoned that there would be no railroading in a dungeon crawl. Yeah, basically because there's only one way to go. It's railroading, but in a funner sense, I guess. He would eventually rejoin the story-focused game with a different character shortly before our final catastrophic falling out, but we have much more euphoria to experience before we arrive at that final glorious day. Well, I kind of dug this one, OP. It's a little RPG horror stories-esque, which we haven't had on the channels for a while because I've been stuck in Neckbeard stories. I didn't have to get super frustrated at OP not kicking this dude in the nuts for trying to swoop his miladies and shit like that. Overall, I miss Dungeons & Dragons Tales, you know? It's a good break. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, but it's definitely mine. I do like that a whole heck of a lot. I predict that part number 4 will have some Hulkbeard swooping miladies once again, but he'll be ready when we come for him. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. If you did, I hope that you like, comment, and or subscribe. Yes, indeed. Maybe share the video around because that is a super cool MVP plus play. We've also got links in the description, plugs, playlists, podcasts, if that's what you're into. We've also got my social medias down there. You know, the Twitter and the Discord and the Facebook. Come on through, say hello. We've also got my gorgeous, wonderful, beautiful, generous patrons. And I would like to thank them all. So thank you very much.
Robert Waits, River Jerry, hey, the first of the Jerrys. Ryan Kirby, USMC, Aaron W, Twisted Child, Delicious Jelly Donut, Cinnamon Susie, Fire Drake, Jerry, just a regular Jerry. Not the original Jerry, but just a regular Jerry. Livison, Mr. Anime Manga Fan, Silent Revolver, Magville Marshall Thornrose, Captain Clown Jerry, that's 3 Jerrys already, goddamn. Cherish Kitsune, Vanilla Mel, Rouse Tower, Satori, Anunnaki, Asian Persuasion Jerry. That's 4 Jerrys. Assassin Pugmom, Bitch Gremlin, Commander A Tank, Dinosaur Nightlight, Disposable Waifu, Aaron Lennox, Gypsy, Hadrian BR, Heathcliff, A Pimp Named J. Chris, J.M. Coon, the original Jerry. Jerry lost his marble. Oh, Jerry's gonna make ReddX lose his baubles. John Hero, Simboofuk as if your boofing is free, Miss Monday, Lexi Loves Jojo, Lord Lion, Lori Ellis, Jack's Rule, Melgar the Destroyer, Mint Mirthful Baker, Mr. Jerry! I lost count of the Jerrys already. My boy Nat One Nick, Natari, Lady Nix, Origami Jerry, gotta fold them all. Holy hell. Phantom of the Pines, Gata Kids Elizabeth, Sidestep, Side Drinker, Serrated Ass, Staples, Yeet, Side Haptic Boomstick, Brilliant Tamago, Tapioca Boogaloo, Tato Ferret, Bad Tuckabug, The One True Fusky, Treeberg, Vastonite, Wilmags, yet another different Jerry! Zero Blacktail, Kira M, Kitsakin, Redwind, Goose S Hawk, Naga Viper, Saints Blessing, John Indoors, it's totally science! Go ahead and look it up! Promise, swearsies, it's just a fact. I love it! Holy shit, dude. This is getting out of hand. A normal Joe, a different... different Jerry. Amara, Aroxers, Banished Knight, Barbushka's Irradiated Jam, Cake Jerry, the original, different Jerry, California Keto Girl, Chris Meska, Cinnamon Buddy Dog, Crip Titties, hey, Defon Jerry. Oh my god, there's so many Jerrys. Ghost of Alpha, KJW, Kajau, Crafty Kitty Cat, Life of a Guardian, Little Landwoods, Mark 211, maybe next Jerry. Oh god, what is happening? Milk-fed Gimp, Miss Duchess, Origami Cam, Princess Rosalie, Ghosty, Ryga, Raptor Art, Spoonie the Rogue, Steampunk Ellie, The Last Shinobi, The Necrobomicon, and Token Black Jerry.
Thank you guys so much for supporting. I do hope some other people will consider joining up on the Patreon, but if you can't do it right now, don't sweat it too hard, friends. I just appreciate you coming on through, hanging out with me, and I hope that you come on back and hang out with me again tomorrow. In order to do so, you need to keep yourself safe out there, wash your hands, but also take some time out and do something that you personally enjoy today. Maybe like watching some more ReddX videos. Do it.
Do it! Just do it!
Always remember, friends, that you are loved, you are worthy, and you definitely deserve it. I shall see you in the next one, and until then, bye-bye.